Have you ever found yourself mid-binge, fully aware that it's not going to make you feel better and it's actually going to make you feel awful and you're going to regret it later, but you just can't seem to stop yourself? If that's you, first of all, you are not alone, and that used to be my experience, and you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not lazy. You're not lacking discipline, even though I know that it feels that way. There's a reason why your brain keeps going back to food, even though you know it's going to make you feel like crap. So by the end of this episode, you'll understand exactly why this keeps happening and how to start breaking this pattern. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Live Unrestricted podcast, a show where you'll learn how to heal your relationship with food and your body so that you can focus your time and energy on more important things like your personal growth. I'm your host, Sabrina Magna, food freedom coach, and my mission is to help make your life happier and healthier without stress, overwhelm, or guilt about food. If you love the show, please do go out and share it. And if you're looking for support with your relationship with food, details about my programs are in the show notes. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's jump in. What is up, my love? Thank you so much for being here and for pressing play on this episode. And I have to tell you, this is one you do not want to skip. You want to stick around until the very end. I really put some thought into prepping the content for this episode. And even if you are not struggling with binging anymore, or you've never struggled with binging, you're going to learn something that you're going to be able to apply to whatever behavior that you might be doing in your life right now that you're like, I know that this isn't helping me. I know that this is not making me feel better, and I just cannot stop it no matter how much I quote unquote know better. And if you're someone who doesn't have that, like if there is nothing in your life that you know is not serving you, but you're doing it anyways, we need to talk. I need to learn something from you, because no matter how much you learn about the nervous system or behavior change, I think every single one of us has at least that one thing. And I'm going to talk about what that thing is for me. And more specifically, we're going to talk about what is actually going on underneath the surface when you are feeling this almost like uncontrollable feeling that something has taken over you. I remember it used to feel like it felt like a monster. It felt like a monster had taken over me, and I was no longer me. And I was no longer in control of my actions, my behaviors around food. And I've heard a lot of my clients inside of Food Freedom Academy also describe it as this angel and devil on your shoulder. The angel really pushing you towards stopping and listening to your body, and then the devil being like, no, just keep going. And it can feel so conflicting and so frustrating and freaking exhausting to be stuck in that cycle. So I'm also going to give you 5 things that you can start doing right away at the end of this episode to stop that in its tracks before you spiral into more overeating, more binging, and then hating yourself afterwards. So before we get into that, just a quick update for those of you who have been keeping up with my little, what do you call it? My injury, my slipped rib injury. So good news is that it is slowly but surely healing. So I released an episode maybe 2 weeks ago at this point, about the whole fiasco of me injuring myself and me making it so much worse without me knowing. So now I've really been taking it easy. And this week was the first time that I was able to lift some weights in about 3 weeks. And I lifted super not heavy, super light. And I really just wanted to get back into it slowly and listen to my body and not make anything worse. And I want to share this with you because after doing that, after slowly doing light weights, I felt so proud of myself. And I've been repeating to Luke over and over again for the past week or so how proud of myself I am. And what's interesting is I'm not saying I'm so proud of myself because I got back into working out quickly. It's actually the opposite. I am proud of myself because of how slowly I have been taking this recovery. I'm proud of myself because of how much I am listening to my body and honoring the time that it's going to take for me to get back to normal. And the reason I'm so proud of myself is because I'll be honest with you guys, I had a pattern in my past of when I would get injured, the second I would start to feel slightly better, I would jump right into exercise or working out and going back to real life. I would do the same when I was sick. Like the second, I remember I had COVID a couple of years ago, and there was like one day that I started to feel slightly better and I went headfirst back into work and then ended up burning myself out again. And so it wasn't a cycle that I liked being in, and it wasn't loving to me because I kept just trying to get back into it way too quickly. And so I am so proud of myself for the opposite. I'm proud of myself for taking it slow. And there's two lessons here. Number one is how can you, because I know that I have a lot of type A lot of high achievers, a lot of perfectionists in my community, and you might be one of those people. And so how can you start finding pride and seeing wins in the ways that you don't normally recognize as a win? Maybe it's the day that you actually listened to your body and took a rest day. Maybe it's a day where you just felt like having ice cream and you just allowed yourself to do it without guilt. Maybe it's just being kind to yourself and taking things easy. Maybe you're someone who, like me, struggles to just sit and do nothing, and you allowed yourself to sit and do nothing. So that's the first thing is how can you start finding wins and pride in slowing down, in taking things slow, in being kinder to yourself? And then the second thing is how can you celebrate your wins more? Oh my goodness, I could do a full episode on this, but I'm going to just say this. Every single week, I ask my Food Freedom Academy members to share their wins inside of our private group. And it feels like something insignificant. It feels like something that won't make a big difference, but to take even 1 to 2 minutes out of your day to really force your brain to think about what progress have I made? What am I proud of? What are some of the wins that I've had lately? That is programming your brain to think differently, to stop looking for the ways in which you're doing something wrong and to start looking for the things that you're doing right, the ways that you're moving towards your goal, towards your dream life. And all of our members always say when they do that, they instantly feel a shift in their energy. They instantly are able to recognize, I have come so far, and this gives you the momentum to say, I can do anything. And so how can you really take that time to celebrate yourself, especially if it feels uncomfortable? For example, one of the wins that our member Carolyn shared this week is I signed up this week to Food Freedom Academy and started doing the deeper work to heal my relationship with food. It feels scary yet calming at the same time. And that is such a massive win. And that's what I responded to her as well, because doing something scary means you're doing something you've never done before, which means you're stepping outside of your comfort zone. And you should be so proud of yourself for that. I really see that the amount of fear that you experience on a daily basis is directly correlated to how much you're growing. Because if you're not feeling fear, it means you're not doing something you've never done before. And so I always encourage that if there is something that you want to do and you're feeling really scared to do it, it is not a stop sign. It is not saying, don't do this. This is the wrong path. All it means is that you are doing something that is outside of your comfort zone. And on the other side of that discomfort is an insane amount of growth, of peace, of joy, of pride, of accomplishment. So that's my little update on my back. And now let's jump into why it feels almost impossible to stop a binge, even though you know it's going to make you feel awful. And this is extremely important because what I see all the time is that women find themselves stuck and perpetuate this sense of stuckness because they keep blaming themselves. And when you're blaming yourself, what happens is the questions that you'll ask yourself are really bad questions. What's wrong with me? Why can't I stop? It's super disempowering. And so you keep getting disempowering answers, and then you reinforce this belief that you're going to be stuck in this forever. But when you can move away from thinking there's something wrong with you and actually recognizing that there are very real reasons that this is happening, and you can change your questions to what is there for me to learn here? What is there for me to see here? Then that empowers you because you realize that there is something that you can do about it. So the first thing that we need to talk about is your conscious versus your subconscious mind. We've talked about this before, but it plays into every single thing in our life. And when it comes to binge eating, it has a huge role. So this feeling of I should know better, or I even know better. I know it's not going to make me feel good, even though I keep doing it. I can't stop. The I know it's not going to make me feel good is a conscious thought, right? You know, you can think about this, that in 10 minutes, in 20 minutes, I'm not going to feel good. And a really great example of this, and I talked about how I have my behaviors that I know aren't going to make me feel good and I just can't stop anyways. My biggest kryptonite is picking at my nails when I get anxious. I don't binge anymore. I don't scroll on my phone for hours. I don't binge watch TV. I actually hate doing that. But the biggest thing for me that I haven't yet been able to fully conquer is picking at my nails when I get stressed. And the thing is, even while I'm doing it, I know you might make yourself bleed and this is going to hurt like hell in just a few minutes. You should probably stop now. And those are all conscious things. But remember that your conscious mind only makes up 5% of your total mind. This is proven. This is not just some number I whipped out of my butt. This is proven. And so you are working with your 5% of your conscious mind against 95% subconscious drivers. And so that's why so many people can have goals. I want to make more money. I want to change my job. I want to have healthier relationships. I want to have better friendships. I want to stop binge eating. I want to lose weight, right? Like there's all of these conscious goals. But ask yourself, why does everyone have goals, but the large majority of people don't hit them? If all you needed was a conscious desire, then everyone would be hitting their goals and no one would struggle. And so that points to the fact that there are subconscious drivers, whether it is your nervous system, and don't worry, we're going to get into it, but whether it's your emotional responses, patterns that you've developed, subconscious beliefs that you are ingrained into, that have been conditioned into you, that have been repeated time and time again, like an all or nothing mentality. That is subconscious, right? No one is consciously thinking, oh, I want to have an all or nothing mentality. I want to think that the second I've done something that I'm not proud of, or the second I've started something that I don't want to start, I'm just going to like throw up my hands and say, well, it's all ruined and I'm just going to really take it all the way. That's not something that consciously anyone wants to do. So this is a subconscious pattern. And so understanding this is really, really helpful, because then you can start looking at what is going on underneath the surface. And that is why I stress this all the time, that inside of Food Freedom Academy, all of our attention is on that 95% of what is going on beneath the surface, because willpower is a conscious force. It is something that you choose through your will. But when you are fighting 5% of your mind versus 95% of your mind, imagine you've got 100 people in a field and 5 people are fighting against 95 people. Doesn't matter if those 5 people are the strongest people in the world. Numbers will always win. Those 95 people are going to dominate those 5 people. And so that's how you really want to think about it, is how can I instead learn about my subconscious, go underneath the surface and work with it and heal the things that are keeping me repeating these patterns. Now, with that in mind, let's look at what are some of those things that might be happening underneath the surface. Now, a disclaimer, everyone is really different. Everyone has a different history, different patterns that they've developed over the years. And so I can't go through every single one here on this podcast, because you might have a very unique situation. And what I love doing on our Food Freedom Academy coaching calls is if someone's going through a specific challenge or they're having a block, I get to dive in, and I am obsessed with asking questions until we get to the bottom of it. And once we get to the bottom of it, there's always going to be that moment where our student will light up. And it's like, oh my God, this thing that I've been struggling with for 20 years now makes so much sense. I know what's happening and I know how to tackle it. But what I'm going to do in this episode is I'm going to go through some of the most common ones that no matter what, I'm sure that at least one of them, you're going to be able to lift your hand and say, oh my God, this is me. So let's get into it. The first one is when you're experiencing this feeling that something has taken over you and that you no longer are in control and you cannot stop yourself. What is often happening is that food is acting as an emotional escape. Remember that we are basically controlled by our nervous system. Our nervous system is the command center, and it is designed to do what? A little pop quiz? Our nervous system is designed to keep us alive. It is designed to keep us safe. And so what starts to happen is any time that your body starts to sense a level of danger, a level of fear, your nervous system will start to feel that, and it will develop patterns in order to address that fear and that discomfort. And what I often see in the women in my community, and maybe this is happening for you too, is that you have developed a pattern that when you feel certain emotions, stress, boredom, anxiety, loneliness, it could even feel like for certain people, it is any kind of emotion, you have linked it to eating. A big problem I see is that not many people are taught how to sit with emotions, how to relate to emotion. We have this idea that feeling stress, feeling anxiety, feeling discomfort, feeling loneliness, feeling boredom is bad, and that you should not feel that way. And if that is your relationship with your emotions, what do you think is going to happen when you start to feel those beginning stages of those emotions? Your brain and your nervous system are going to send that signal, danger, something is off here. Something is going on and we need to fix it. And often what happens when I'm working with people who struggle with binge eating is that you have learned that the best way to temporarily regulate is to eat, because maybe you've never learned how to self-soothe, how to regulate in other ways. That's why in Food Freedom Academy, we teach you how to create an emotional toolbox. Because if all of your eggs is in one basket, which is food, if that is the only tool that you know, then you're actually going to feel like you cannot stop emotional eating. You cannot stop binge eating, because it's as if right now that's your only safety net. That's your life jacket. And that's as if I'm saying, okay, well, I'm going to take off your life jacket and we're just going to throw you into the water, even though you have no other skills and you have no idea how to swim. You won't do it because, again, your nervous system wants to survive. It is based in safety. And so what's happening is, let's say you start to feel dysregulated. And we all know that feeling. Like right before a binge, there's usually some kind of stress response. And you start eating in order to release and reduce the discomfort of dysregulation. I'm not going to lie, dysregulation feels awful. We start to feel it in a physical response, right? Like our heart rate increases, things start to go like really quickly in your mind, and you just want to escape that. And so you start going towards food. And what's going to happen is once you start eating, you're going to notice yourself numbing. The sensation is going to start to feel better, even just temporarily. And so you will continue to eat, even if your body is so stuffed, it feels uncomfortable, because at that point, you're no longer feeling a physical need. You're feeling an emotional need. You don't know how to self-regulate. And so food is acting as that thing for you. And so as I'm saying all of this, I hope that you are not going into self-shaming, like, wow, I can't believe that I have no other regulating skills, that this is all I have, blah, blah, blah. Because I know that some of you might be doing that right now, and I want to stop you in your tracks before you do that. Because you have to recognize no one taught us this. I was never taught this. The reason why I learned how to work with my nervous system is because I invested a lot of money to learn it. I got myself in programs and I got myself coaches that taught me how to do that. I had to go out of my way because they didn't teach me this in elementary school or high school or CEGEP or university. And if you're confused what CEGEP is, I'm not even going to go into that. It is a thing that we have only in Quebec, so no need. But you were never taught this. And so you might need to go out of your way to invest in support that's going to help you with this. And the thing is, if there is one thing, I was asked on a podcast, I was a guest on a podcast about last week, and she was asking me about intuitive eating and food freedom. And she said, if you could teach one thing in schools to kids, what would it be? And I said, no doubt, nervous system regulation. I would teach people how to handle their emotions, how to self-soothe, how to self-regulate, and how to understand their different responses in their body. Because remember that your nervous system is your command center. And so if you don't know how to work with your command center is going to feel like it has control over you. And I'm sure that you felt that before. I've heard this all the time, and I used to feel this too. My emotions are controlling me. I have no control over it. And that can show up in binge eating, but it can also show up in taking it out on your partner, where right after, once you're out of that stress response, once you're out of that dysregulation, you think and you're like, why did I say that? that was so impulsive. That is not how I feel. And so this happens all the time in our life where we can feel that our emotions have the better of us. And then afterwards we look back on it and we have regret. And the last thing that I want to say on this to really drive this point home is that when you're in dysregulation, when you're in a stress response, what's really happening is your survival instinct is on high alert. And so what happens in terms of your ability to think long term? What happens is that everything becomes about the immediate. If you think about being chased by a lion and your survival is now in danger, you're not thinking about, oh, I should slow down right now so that I can maintain a pace and I can run as long as possible. No, you're literally thinking about how do I go as fast as possible right now. I don't care about 5 minutes from now. I don't care about 30 minutes from now. I care about right now. So now, hopefully you're starting to understand why you could consciously know I'm going to feel like crap 30 minutes from now. Your nervous system does not care because your nervous system is literally just concerned about right now. How do I feel better right now? And your nervous system does not know the difference between being chased by a lion or getting a rude text from your boss, or feeling stress because of work, or feeling anxious because of an argument you had with your partner. It does not know the difference. And that's why sometimes when you're dysregulated, it literally feels like you are dying. And that can feel hard to grasp and understand at first because you're like, how do us as humans possibly confused being chased by a lion and getting a rude email? But everything comes down to safety and survival. This is like millions and millions of years in the making. So that is the first thing to really, I hope that you're starting to see that just because your conscious desire is there and you really want it, that's only 5% of the equation. Now, the second thing that I want to talk about is the conditioned relief loop. So what happens over time is that your brain learns that food equals temporary relief. So it's going to keep repeating it, even if it's followed by guilt. So let's talk about the dopamine reward loop. I'm going to do this very simply so that it's easy for you to grasp. Let's use our phones as an example. So let's say that you pick up your phone. So that is the action that you take, as you pick up your phone. Then what happens is that you get biofeedback. So your dopamine increases. And we all hate that this happens, but when we get that notification on our phone or we get a message, our dopamine increases. When we go on social media, we see a great TikTok, our dopamine increases. And the next thing that happens is that you feel happy. So then what happens next is that your dopamine decreases. And when your dopamine decreases, you then will look for the action that help increase your dopamine in the first place, which was pick up your phone. And that's why we end up picking up our phones like 700 times in a day, because we pick up our phone, our dopamine increases, we feel happy, we put it away, we're like, okay, back to work. Then our dopamine decreases and we're like, I want that dopamine again. Pick up the phone, increase, and then this creates a cycle. And so the same thing can happen with food. And this is an important point. What tends to happen with people who experience a strong emotional tie to food and feel like they get a lot of their joy from it, what I tend to see, it's because they are not creating more natural, long-lasting dopamine in other areas of their life. And so if you're someone, I'm not going to pretend that I read this book, but I've had a lot of people in my life read Dopamine Nation, and they go deep into this and all of the ways that we end up chasing these artificial dopamine creators, like scrolling on social media or food or TV. And the more you can move away from that and get your dopamine from something as simple as going outside for a walk or taking a warm shower or just spending time drinking your coffee, what you're going to notice is that you're not going to need this like quick infusion of dopamine like the one that you would get from food. So this is really an opportunity to pause and self-reflect and look at the things in your life that you are currently getting dopamine from. And so if it's things that create like instant gratification, we're talking social media, food, games, drugs, even procrastination, manipulation, porn. Those are things that will create that like instant gratification, but will keep you coming back for more and will be more temporary. Versus when you can start focusing on things that will create that real sense of happiness. Things like enjoying the little things. Like I said, the sun shining on your skin, or I always stop to like look at a flower blooming, experiencing new things, new friendships, new experiences, new activities, breath work, gratitude, exercise, nature, love. Really taking that time to just self-reflect, because that's going to give you a really great indication of where might I be getting my dopamine and where might I be putting myself stuck in the dopamine reward loop. So far we've talked about your nervous system response and we've talked about your dopamine response. Now, the next thing that could have a huge role to play in that feeling of being out of control is on your mindset level. It's in your thoughts, in your beliefs, in your conditioned neural pathways. And that is something that you will definitely be able to relate to. All or nothing thinking. The thought of, I've already messed up, so I might as well just keep going. And all or nothing thinking is something that can show up in so many areas of your life. And I know that you've heard this analogy before of if you had a crack on your phone, would you just keep hitting it against the wall until it was completely broken? No. But when diet culture really, really ingrains this in your mind of the second that you've quote unquote gone off track, like there's all of this language of on and off track. And when I'm working with my clients, I am always very picky about anything that I hear coming out of their mouth in their sentences. If it's language that is very diet culture language, I pick up on it right away and I call it out, because your language is a window to your soul. Your language is a window to your subconscious mind. And so if you're saying it, it means that it's still there, and we got to get that shit out of your mind. And so noticing when your mind goes into shit, I've already ruined it, so F it. I'm just going to go all out and start again tomorrow. That's the restrict and binge cycle. Telling yourself that you're going to be better tomorrow is actually making your binges worse, because now there's like this promise out into the future that you're going to make up for the damage that you've just done. So right now, I'm not going to care. And especially if you've been restricting and you haven't been allowing yourself to eat certain foods, well, now it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to eat everything that I haven't been allowing myself to eat. and go back to not eating it tomorrow. And so this is one that is a little bit more complex because inside of the program, we really teach you how to, number one, become aware of your subconscious thoughts and your patterns. And then we give you tools and processes to get those out, to rewire them, and to create new empowering thought patterns that are going to lead you away from the binges, away from the all or nothing. And once you can do that, you can do it in all areas of your life. I say this all the time, living in the gray is going to be your superpower. Because if I think that I can't do much in 5 minutes, well, I'm just going to tell myself, why even bother? Versus if there's a 5-minute here that I start and a 5-minute there and a 5-minute there and a 5-minute there, let's say we take the example of folding my laundry. I think, well, I can't do much in 5 minutes. Well, then my laundry is just going to be a pile of laundry that's going to sit on my couch for days. Versus I've got 5 minutes right now, I'm going to start. I've got 5 minutes right now, I'm going to do a little bit more. By the end of the day, those 5 minutes add up. So I can't stress enough the importance of learning how to rewire, get that out of your mind, the all or nothing mentality. So those are the 3 things that I want you to walk away with today. Of course, I could go into so many other root causes and we flush them all out, every single one inside of FFA. But these are ones that are going to have a huge impact if you can start paying attention to what's going on in your body, what's going on in your mind, and then start addressing that. Healing starts by understanding why the binge is happening. I want you to write this down. Write this down on a piece of paper. Pause this episode. Healing starts by understanding why, and I want you to underline why and put it in capitals, why the binge is happening. But don't worry, I'm not going to finish this episode without giving you something tangible, actionable, that you can start implementing right away. All right. So instead of just telling yourself, I'm just going to try harder, I'm just going to be more disciplined, I'm just going to be better tomorrow, because remember that that's not going to work, because that's 5% of your conscious mind. You have to work with your subconscious. You've got to work with your nervous system. Here's what you're going to do instead. Number 1 is I want you to pause and get present. So this could be before the binge. So if you're able to recognize what's happening before it even happens, that's even better. But don't put that pressure on yourself, because sometimes when you're just starting to do this work, that can be challenging because you might already be in a nervous system response. You might already be dysregulated. And so oftentimes what will happen is that people will bring themselves to awareness halfway through a binge. Sometimes it only happens afterwards. Like that feeling of, I didn't even realize it was happening until my hand was at the bottom of the bag of chips. Like that is a very real thing that can happen. So the goal is to be able to notice and bring awareness to it happening as close to the beginning of the binge as possible. And this is where mindfulness will be a superpower for you. If you're not doing anything in your life right now to bring more presence, more awareness, more self-reflection in your life, whether that's journaling or breath work or meditation, this is going to be so helpful for you because you're going to have more awareness of what's happening on a moment-to-moment basis versus living life on autopilot, versus living life sleepwalking. So bring awareness, number 1. So pause and get present. Second thing is, let's say that you're able to notice it right before you go to the pantry, right before you start the binge. What I want you to do, the second thing, is I want you to breathe. This sounds so stupidly simple, and that's the point. A lot of people overcomplicate it. When you're struggling with binge eating and it feels like a very deep and very complex problem, people then think I have to change my entire life. I have to restrict all these foods. Like I have to go from 0 to 100. That's not the case. The issues can be complex, but the solutions are often simple. And that's what I say in my program all the time. What we do inside of FA, it's not necessarily easy, but it's simple. And so to simplify it for you right now, the second thing you're going to do is just breathe. So what I recommend is one hand on your belly, one hand on your heart. And if you can, like, go sit down and focus on taking 10 deep belly breaths, minimum. So 10 deep belly breaths, you can focus on breathing in for 4, holding for 4, breathing out for 4, holding for 4. This is called box breathing. So doing those 10 breaths, and you can do 20, you can do 30, you can do as many as you need. What you're doing is you are sending signals of safety to your nervous system. You are literally self-regulating. You are showing your body, we are safe, we're okay, and you are decreasing that signal of danger that is leading you to want to eat in order to feel better. So those 10, 20, 30 deep breaths. And notice if there is a part of you that feels a sense of grief, that feels a sense of sadness, but what if I do that and I actually don't want to eat anymore? This might sound crazy for some of you, but there's a good chance that this could happen. That part of you has gotten so used to having food as that friend, as that comfort, as that reliable source of joy, that there could be a grieving process. I actually posted something on my Instagram at Sabrina Manuel Health about that grieving that some people can go through when they no longer are emotionally eating. They're no longer turning to food to cope. And if that happens for you, just be aware of that. Have compassion for yourself. Show yourself love, that this is something that was part of your life for so long. And so it's normal if there's a sense of discomfort in letting that go. And, you might still end up turning to food, and that's okay. But taking that time to take 10 deep breaths is going to slow you down. It's going to bring that part of your brain that's able to think more critically, that's able to think long term, back online. And so you'll be able to more consciously make the decision about what you want to do next. So the third thing you're going to do once you've taken those deep breaths and slowed things down is ask yourself, what am I feeling or trying to escape right now? Just get present to what's going on. Are you feeling stressed? Are you feeling lonely? Are you feeling bored? Are you feeling like just a sense of discomfort because you're doing nothing? There's always going to be something that is going on. Number 4 is I want you to release the pressure to not binge. This is going to sound crazy to some of you, but trust me on this. What happens when you are like holding tight, gripping tightly of, I can't binge, I don't want to binge, I don't want to do this, I have to stop. What you're actually doing is you're putting yourself in more of a stress response, because now there is so much pressure and you're actually sending a danger signal to your nervous system. So counterintuitive, but if you tell yourself that you have to stop, you're more likely to binge. And so release the pressure. Bring yourself back to the present moment. Remember that the goal is regulation. The goal is self-kindness. Once you've paused and reflected, took a few deep breaths, you asked yourself what's going on internally, you've released the pressure, the last thing you're going to do is you're going to ask yourself, what would be the most loving thing that I can do for myself right now? Such a simple yet powerful, and for some of you, life-changing question. What would be the most loving thing that I can do for myself right now? Maybe it's talking to your partner. Maybe it's taking a bath. Maybe it's going for a walk. Maybe it's, just scrolling some funny reels on Instagram. But it's going to be different from one person to another, and it's going to be dependent on what you're needing in that moment, because you were turning to food because there was something that you needed that you're not going to find in food. And so when you can ask yourself the right kind of questions, then you're going to get much better answers. So I hope that this episode really gave you a sigh of relief and helped you understand what's really going on and give you the power that you can do something about it. And if you want to dive even deeper into all of this, the subconscious stuff, the root causes of not just binge eating, but constant food thoughts, emotional eating, the guilt and the shame that you feel consumed by, I go in depth into all of this in my free training on how to stop feeling obsessed with food. So you can go to sabrinamagnan.com/training and get instant access to it. And most importantly, if this episode was helpful for you, send it to someone who needs it. There are too many women out here who are still struggling with food, and it breaks my heart. And we need to get this information that's actually going to make a difference into the ears of people who need it the most, because the women I have in my community are so heart-led. They can create such a massive impact in this world. And we cannot do that if 90% of our brain space is being consumed with struggles with food and our bodies. So send this episode to someone who needs it. I love you so, so much. I'll see you on the next episode. Hey, real quick before you go, if you're loving this podcast and you're thinking, Sabrina, I want more. I want to go deeper. I want a step-by-step process for healing my relationship with food. I've got a free workshop that literally walks you through it. It's a full breakdown of the exact method that I use to help my clients stop binging, heal emotional eating, and finally feel at peace with food and their bodies. It's totally free. So if you're ready to stop feeling obsessed and out of control with food, head to sabrinamagnan.com/training or find the link in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, I would love if you would share it with someone you know that could benefit. If you're loving the show, don't forget to subscribe over on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. I really love hearing feedback from you, so please leave a rating and review over on Apple to help us get in the ears of more people who need it the most. Finally, come hang out with me on Instagram at Sabrina Magnan Health for more educational content and get up close and personal with me. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next episode.